Hello, this is Mr. Holland, and I'm here to give a brief introduction to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address speech. So let's get into it. The Battle of Gettysburg, to give some background context, this was a battle during the Civil War, and it takes place between July 1st and July 3rd in the summer of 1863, during the Civil War, obviously. And this was a Union victory. It marks a major turning point in the war for the Union. There is projected to have been between 46,000 and 51,000 deaths between the two sides, the Union and the Confederacy. So Lincoln's involvement in the Gettysburg battle. Lincoln gives the Gettysburg Address speech on November 19th, 1863, some good 4.5 months after the actual battle itself takes place. Lincoln was the president of the United States at the time, and he was backing the Union. Lincoln was anti-slavery, and this was something that he shows pretty clearly in the Gettysburg Address. So if we look closer at the speech, all things considered, this was a relatively short speech. It only lasted between about 2 to 3 minutes. I believe the exact number is 2 minutes and 46 seconds, I want to say. And it was only 272 words. So once again, pretty short speech. And it addressed the reasoning and the importance for fighting the war. So, main points addressed by Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address speech. We have a nation built on liberty. This is a quote from it. Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So, this shows his involvement with the Union and their goals to end slavery in America, showing that all men are created equal, and that directly goes against the ideas of slavery that were happening in America at the time. And then nextly, hoping that this nation can survive. Another quote, now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. So Lincoln is saying that the idea of America is great and that this civil war will truly prove whether or not they will be able to keep this idea of freedom and liberty amongst all men. Remembering those who lost their lives, we cannot hallow this ground. Oh, my apologies. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. So Lincoln is putting the emphasis on not only just what the war really means, but remembering those who are making an effort to keep this freedom and this liberty, and we can't forget what they have done, giving their lives. So I also put the full Gettysburg Address here. Given it's pretty short, I'll just go ahead and cover it. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a large sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here might resolve, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, sorry, 1863. So hopefully this could give you guys a good brief introduction of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. And that is all. Thank you.